Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Timeout Talks, which is brought to you by Chase and Throws Custom T-shirts and accessories, and is also sponsored by the Ice Shaker, the only bottle you will ever need. You guys can buy your custom Timeout Talks apparel via www.chaseandthrows.com, and you guys can buy your Ice Shakers at www.iceshaker.com. Just want to thank our viewers all over the streaming platforms of Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. We're back to having those jam-packed shows. Next week will be a little Super Bowl special. But of course, we're going to give you the NFL. We're going to start off. Sean Peyton is the new head coach of the Denver Broncos. Ben was the one who just informed me. I just must have slipped my phone today. But D'Amico Ryans, the defensive coordinator, or previous defensive coordinator from the San Francisco 49ers, is to the Texans. We'll talk about him taking that job. 6-year gig there. We've got the Eagles and Chiefs are Super Bowl bound. Of course, we'll get to the AFC and NFC Championship. We'll recap those bad boy games. The Bruins are on a 3-game skid. We'll talk about them, definitely. It's been a couple weeks since we've done that. And we'll end the show with the poll I put out on social media for you guys. We will give you guys not too much interaction, but I will give you guys the percentage of what you guys had to say. But that is, should the Celtics make a move at the deadline? That will be the end of our show. Welcome you in here, Ben. We are back on another week. Nice little fresh cuts here, both of us. And a nice little weekend after the Royal Rumble, back from San Antonio, feeling great. But let's kick things off. Let's get right into it. Let's get right into the heart of things here. Sean Payton is heading to the Denver Broncos. Just something that really kind of just, I was literally at work today. I seen one tweet and it was like, oh, the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton it's ramping up a little bit. And then all of a sudden, bang, you knew that tweet was going to come in an hour later from Ian Rappaport. It is official. First round pick, the Saints, who, as Ben even mentioned to me too, still under contract there and some weird thing, even though he was with Fox. I don't even know how you can just step away from a job like that. Imagine a player did something like that. Woo, yeah. They'd be in huge trouble. But the New Orleans Saints are receiving a first-round pick and a second-round pick for Sean Payton, who's going over to the Denver Broncos. Ben, how do we feel about this?
Right. Like I said, Josh, I mean, for the Saints, a little weird situation. It's obviously at Fox Sports, so you don't even really associate him with the Saints, but he's still under contract. So it's basically a free trade for them. Get a nice little first-round pick, 29th spot in the draft. So I mean, listen, any first round pick is a major one, I believe. 1 through 32, you kind of take that as a first rounder. So a little weird move from the Broncos. I know you want to go all out for a great coach after this Nathaniel Hackett experiment gone wrong, but you really need all the options, Josh. I think you need all the options you can have or get to try to rebuild this roster. You need those draft picks. So everyone knows they already lost their major one to the Saints and this Russell Wilson one. And then you lose another one. So it's going to have to be a big free agency, I guess, for them. I don't know. They're paying Russell Wilson a lot. So the cap space is pretty minimum, I believe. I got to double check that. But I don't believe they have a lot of cap space, Josh. So I don't know what this one is. Hopefully, they're planning on Sean Payton sort of turning this team around. I really don't see that. You got to build this roster up completely. Especially in the AFC West. I don't think Sean Payton's going to just come in here and change that. Not one head coach can do that. He's a great coach. No knocks on Sean Payton, but I think this is just really, I wouldn't say bad, just strange. Strange is kind of a bad word too. It's an indifferent move, Josh, for me. It doesn't move the dial for me with the Broncos. I don't think it makes them better. Quite frankly, I think it kind of makes them worse. Now you're not able to build the roster out. So good move from the Saints, Josh. I think you can really just build on this, continue to build that roster out. Like I said, I mean, Sean Payton was working at Fox, Fox Sports. So I mean, really not giving up anything for the Saints. So I think it's a good move for them. Tough move for the Broncos. I think that team just needs a lot more than a head coach right now, Josh. And as you mentioned, D'Amico Ryans. Josh texted me. I just got that Sean Payton news. Just tuned into NFL Live. Josh texted me at the same time. So nice little synchronization there. Then about an hour later, D'Amico Ryans to the Texans. I mean, their sixth full-time head coach in their history, and I think it's one of the best. They got a nice young defense over there against Stingley. Now you got the second overall pick. It's basically the first thing you get a quarterback. The Bears are probably going to go Will Anderson. So you're going to get the quarterback of your choice. Hopefully the Texans can make the right decision on that one and just build out the roster with D'Amico Ryans. I love that move. Contrary to the Broncos one, I love D'Amico going over there. A great defensive mind, young mind over here in the NFL. Saw what he did with this 49ers team. So A+ move from the Texans on that, Josh. You have to give this a D+ from the Broncos.
It's interesting. Ben talking a little bit earlier about the cap space. The Denver Broncos have $12 million remaining in cap space. They are above the top tier, sitting 13th in the league for cap space. So,
all right, take it back.
They can still free up a little bit more. An ideal situation. You look at teams like the Cowboys and even the New Orleans Saints are both negative in the cap. The Saints are like really negative in the cap. Like they are in some weird territory. I'm assuming some of that might be flexed over with Sean Payton. I also believe that I think coaches have different salaries and stuff like that. That's a different cap, but that's a conversation for another day. I don't hate it, Ben. I hate it for him, I guess. I feel like I would say for him more. I think the situation that you're walking into is a weird one. If you're the Denver Broncos, though, I don't hate it. Yes, to Ben's point, you're putting all this money on him. You're still positional players away from being where you want to be in a very loaded AFC, not to mention division. You got the Chargers, you got the Chiefs on the rise, Raiders, they're in a weird situation as well. But I like it for the Denver Broncos overall. You got their quarterback in Russell Wilson. They're kind of in a panic mode, Ben, where they're throwing all their chips in. They're saying, all right, this is the best available head coach left. We know his resume. We know what he's done. Now, can he get us back afloat? Can we get back to maybe those Denver Bronco days when they had Peyton Manning? Or, can we do something like that? We know Russell Wilson's won before, but the answer to that, in my opinion, and I know you kind of hinted at, is no. I don't think Russell Wilson's that guy. It's so funny. I was watching something on Twitter and it was talking about how Russell Wilson in the playoffs, you look at his playoff records and performances, some of them have been shaky, Ben. I think some people forget about that 4 interception game against the Packers. Completely forgot about that. I mean, that was a weird thing that happened. Obviously the Marshawn Lynch thing, whatever. But I'm kind of rambling, but I like the situation if you're the Denver Broncos. I don't like it if you're Sean Payton because I don't think it moves the needle like you mentioned, Ben. They're still off in depth. It's kind of been a wide receiver carousel at the number 1. They're trying to figure out if it's Sutton, if it's Judy, if it's Tim Patrick. All those guys, there's a lot of question marks there. Don't be surprised if C1 moved as well. But yeah, you're getting rid of another first-round draft pick here. It's one of those things that it's going to be interesting because I think you literally just hit it on the head with the Denver Broncos and the Texans. This offseason is going to be very important for both of those teams. We'll get to D'Amico Ryans in a second in the Texans, but I think they're both in similar situations where you got to make the most of this draft and you got to make the most of this offseason in terms of free agency because you're ways to go, and whenever you look down that hall and you see Andy Reid in another classroom and you see Patrick Mahomes coming in, the first student of the day, it doesn't look too pretty good. It does not look good at all. So, again, it's just I don't like it I don't like it as reality. I like it as a fan. It's nice on paper. The Broncos trying to go in. Sean Payton can kind of rebuild them. It's a cool little project, but I don't think the project is going to work out, Ben. On the other hand, we're talking about D'Amico Ryans and the Texans. Another thing, kind of surprised he left. I think this might be, hopefully, if you're D'Amico Ryans, you think that this is a situation similar to the New York Jets and Robert Saleh, where you can really kind of build from the ground up, make a name for yourself. Look at the Jets now; they're taking the right strides with him. He's definitely not the problem over there in New York. So if you're D'Amico Ryans, you're hoping for something similar to that. You've got Derek Stingley, like you mentioned. You've got your little running back in Pierce. You've potentially got a quarterback, a bunch of quarterbacks available on the board there for you, Ben. You have to hit on the quarterback. You have to hit on your draft picks and your salary and your free agency. Which, speaking of salary, the Houston Texans are sixth in the league with available $37 million in cap. Now, Spot Track's not exactly right, but they've got some money to spend, Ben. Hopefully, D'Amico Ryans makes it a little bit more appealing there. I like that more than I like the Sean Payton in Denver. I think the Sean Payton in Denver with Russell Wilson, maybe he can try to figure him out. But I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think D'Amico Ryans has a lot to kind of handle here in Texas. He's really got to pull himself out of the dirt here. But you've got the draft picks. You've got the nice board for every round of the draft picks. You're sitting pretty much number 2. And we'll just see what he does with it, Ben. But like you said, the biggest question is, who's his quarterback going to be? Who's that franchise guy going to be? And Nick DeVosta coming in here. Very good one. Talking about Kellen Moore and the Chargers. That is true. Overall, quick little point here. I like it for him. I think this is a very good test because he's going into another situation that's established, but it's not homegrown. Kellen Moore's been with Dallas for a while now. He was a quarterback there. He kind of was already leaning towards that coach's role before he had even taken the job as the offensive coordinator in Dallas. I think a lot of people forget that, so he's really familiar with the system. He's going to have a lot on his plate with the Chargers. I think a lot of the issue has been the offensive side of things. You look at a lot of these blown games, you look at some of the play calling, it's been questionable for the Chargers. I think it's a very appealing situation, probably the best situation for him to walk into as an offensive coordinator outside of Dallas, in my opinion. That's because I love Justin Herbert and the Chargers, but I like that, Ben. I think it's a good thing, but all eyes on deck here because Kellen Moore, I know he was questionable in Dallas. I think he's ready to take this job, but there's still some questions there.
Yeah, it's perfect transition, Josh. I mean, I was going to point to Dak and Kellen Moore's relationship as sort of a good indicator for Justin Herbert. I felt like he needs that, especially after this sort of collapse against the Jaguars, where you see the offense become really stagnant. And, that's obviously, he's got to take some fault, as we mentioned before. But, the offense coordinator's got to take some fault in that as well. Just some bad play calling, not getting him in the right position. They got enough talent out there. They got to be able to put the Jaguars away in that. So I love this move. I thought Kellen Moore really elevated Dak. And that was a good point by Josh, too. We're going to have to see what happens with Dak now. Let's see if Dak regresses or, progresses. It gets better or, just maintains this pace. Because, I really did think Dak elevated his game. People could say what they want, but, I think he really proved himself this year. So I think that's a good sign for Herbert and the Chargers. Trying to get that going over there because they just need something, Josh. I don't think he's had a offense coordinator 2 years in a row, multiple head coaches for Herbert already in his young sort of career. So let's get some stability in there. I like that with the Kellen Moore signing. I like Kellen Moore. So that was a good one for the Chargers. I think they finally got a nice coach in there that should help elevate them. But much like the Broncos, it's kind of tough, Josh. When you're going up against the Chiefs and Mahomes every week, that's always a tough one. But I think it's a great move for them. And just adding on to that, D'Amico Ryans one. I mean, the Texans got 11 picks in this draft. Got second and 12th round, or a second and 12th overall pick. 12th overall pick from the Browns. I got a third rounder from the Browns, 2 in that Watson deal. So, we mentioned, obviously that's Stingley on the other side, and let's, go get a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young. Let's see if that can work, and just go add some to these other key positions with this amount of picks you got right there. Nice cap space. So I think the Texans made a really good signing right there. I think everybody's making good moves, Josh, besides really the Broncos. If I'm going to be honest, the Broncos just and Josh is kind of convincing me too right now. A little is, I can't blame it all on Champagne and everything. That roster just stinks. It's a bad contract with Russell Wilson. And they're really just leaving them no room forever with that. They just got to put all their faith in Russell Wilson right now. And as Josh illuminated, he hasn't really always been the best, and we're kind of seeing that right now. So I think the Broncos just, hey, good efforts, but it's just not working out right now for them.
I couldn't agree anymore, Ben. I think just to kind of like wrap it all up and just for full circle here. Kellen Moore, I think to the Chargers is probably the most appealing on paper. I think, obviously you want the head coaching gig for DeMeco Ryans and same for Sean Payton, who's already established. But I think in terms of just reality, I think his role will probably be the best. I think he might end up turning out to have the most success because that's an established offense. That's an established team that's on the rise. I do know that the Chiefs are there, as you've mentioned, but I like that fit a lot. I think it's kind of like we mentioned, it's kind of a test for him. And back to the Texans. Quick little point here before we get over to Kindred's point here. We'll talk about the Chiefs. We'll start off with the AFC side of things. Or actually, we'll start off with the NFC. The AFC was a little bit more rolling. But if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm picking that phone up and I'm taking any trade call you want. For a guy like Brandon Cooks, why not go all in? I mean, I know you're kind of wasting time. There's a little injury concerns there with Cooks. See if you can get some value for him. Ship him out. Add to another draft pick. I think the Texans have a little bit of moving room here. I know Brandon Cooks was already kind of on his way out, but just kind of reminded me of it, Ben, when you were talking about it, adding maybe another piece, maybe another future first-round draft pick next year. Teams get antsy. You never know. But, that's something that if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm picking up that phone and I'm saying, hey, I'm putting Brandon Cooks on that block because somebody's going to get antsy. Maybe a team like the Cowboys or another team who needs another receiver. I'm not saying I would want to do that, but I think there's a lot of teams in the National Football League who need that number 2, that number, borderline 1 to kind of help on their team. But, Ben, there's a lot of shuffling pieces. We got Sean Payton of the Broncos, which we kicked the show off talking about. We got Kellen Moore to the Chargers, Nick DeVosta coming in here through Facebook reminding us about, and, of course, DeMeco Ryans to the Texans. But let's start it off with this. Let's start it off talking the NFC Championship. A wild game, a weird game. Both of these games, it seems like the referees were kind of somewhat in play, Ben. The Eagles looked dominant, in my opinion. I'm not blaming the refs for this win. I'm not doing that. I'm not feeding into it. The Philadelphia Eagles are legit. They neutralized the pass rush. They did the exact thing I told them to do. The offense won them that game. They neutralized the pass rush of Nick Bosa, and they completely shut out Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They leaned on their running backs, and their running game, because Jalen Hurts was able to kind of get it going as well. They're just too dominant right now, Ben. As much as it kills for me to say, they were the better team. I know the 49ers were kind of hobbled, and Brock Purdy got hurt a little early, but I still think Brock Purdy are not in that game. The Philadelphia Eagles were going to roll in that game. I think it was just kind of a bad matchup. I think Dallas would have matched up a little bit better with the Eagles. I'm not saying Dallas would have won that. I still think Eagles would probably win if we're being realistic. But they're just way too dominant, as Aaron said. They rolled over the Giants, rolled over the 49ers, and they're rolling to the Super Bowl, Ben, as much as it pains me to say. I'm not blaming the refs for that. And then you're talking to a Cowboys fan, too. We got to stop with the refs. The Eagles annihilated the 49ers. I know Ben can make this point. I know a lot of people say it too. I know a couple of those overcalled plays were swing plays. Like, I think Devontae Smith's ball hit the floor or whatever. And then another one was Brock Purdy, the fumble. It shouldn't have been a fumble. The Eagles dominated. They rolled. The 49ers came out stagnant. I mean, Josh Johnson looked terrible. It just wasn't, the cards weren't not in their favor. And the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, as much as it pains me to say.
Yeah, Josh, I'm a little confused from people on that one. I didn't really see too many. I didn't really see in the moment those missed calls. Obviously, That Devontae Smith one, that's just you gotta give credit to Devontae Smith. He was just rushing everybody up to the line of scrimmage. He knew he didn't catch it. Obviously, you could tell from his sort of excitement and just trying to get everybody to the line. Just trying to get hike the ball, and they did it. So 49ers had a chance. They could have challenged it, but Eagles played it smart. Devontae Smith got everybody up to the line. It was a good football IQ move from the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, that just shows you Devontae Smith's talent not only on the field but his IQ. So you got to give it to them on that one. That fumble, I mean, I thought that was a fumble. I didn't. I didn't really know why people are still complaining about that one. I guess you could still argue it, but I'm still going to go. I believe it was a fumble. The real just problem, as you alluded to, Josh, it was just the Josh Johnson. I mean, Brock Purdy goes down. I mean, the 49ers fans just, I mean, if you're going to blame anybody, just blame luck. They just got screwed with that. I mean, they just were very unlucky. Every quarterback got hurt. They were about to throw McCaffrey in there. It's nobody else's fault. It's just the injuries finally piled up. Brock Purdy, the Eagles were getting after him before the injury and everything, so, I mean, we're kind of seeing, not him fold, but, we were just trying to see him get his first sort of test in the playoffs and just get some pressure on him. And then, obviously the injury is just unfortunate, but just kind of give it to the Eagles. They just dominated them after that. Obviously Purdy couldn't do much with, that banged up arm. And then even Josh Johnson getting hurt. It was just a really bad day for the 49ers, which stunk because, I mean, that was going to be a really great game. You sort of got to feel with it once they tied it up. That McCaffrey touchdown. You say, all right, maybe they can do something. Maybe the Niners can muster up something with all this talent and everything. But they just shut everybody down. Fred Warner going down was pretty big too. That was pretty early in the game as well. Awful to see for the 49ers losing their defensive leader like that. And then, as Josh mentioned, just made it easier to neutralize Bosa, and then they just had their way with him. So 49ers fans, it's just unlucky right now. I think they just got really unlucky in that game. They just faced a rolling Eagles team. Everyone's loving Aaron's loving the Eagles in the chat. Kinders does not. I got to root for. I don't even know who I really want to root for in the Super Bowl
teasing.
yet. So.
He was gonna give it away, and then he pulled back. He didn't want it.
Josh sees, and Josh gets the business over here. But I'm still on the fence. I got to this as long as the 49ers are out, just so they couldn't beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl record. So. I know I can root for anybody right now, but I'm still on the fence, so it's a good tease. We'll see. We'll talk about that later on. We'll have a nice little Super Bowl preview next week. Get everything going down over there, but 49ers just the injuries piled up and just the luck ran out for them. So hats off to the Eagles for doing that. I mean, this team is just loaded. I can't wait for this matchup. And yeah, I mean, hey, 49ers got a lot of questions now, Josh. I mean, what are we going to do with Purdy? Is Jimmy G coming back? Obviously, Trey Lance is the easiest option. Just put him back in there. But I know some people are clamoring for Purdy. And now it's kind of an unfinished ending right there. So who knows what happens with that. That'll be interesting to see for the 49ers. But hey, great season for them. Just unfortunate way to end it, but it's got to end one way, Josh.
Definitely, and I think, I don't want to preview too much because we got all off season, but I think if you're the 49ers, you're rolling with Purdy a little bit more. Maybe you got a quarterback battle because you did kind of go all in on Trey Lance, but hey, sometimes it's just like you said, the luck of the draw, injuries happen, and next man up. I think Purdy delivered. I mean, he went, 6 or 7-1? He did his job, man. I mean, I know he got banged up in that game, and I still do have my doubts because, I think a lot of the stock, and I'm not taking anything away from Purdy because, as much as that he has the talent around him, you still need to make the right plays with the talent, and he did do so. You pose a good point. If he doesn't get knocked out in that game or that fumble doesn't happen, Nick DeVos saying there's a couple plays, maybe it is a different game. That is true. Maybe if he doesn't get knocked out and maybe the Eagles do go up early, maybe if he stays in the game, they still rattle up and come back. We never know. We'll never figure it out. it hurts us if we just continue to go on with the hypotheticals. But I think you roll out Purdy another chance. I mean, it doesn't hurt. He's the last pick in the draft last year. You drafted him. You got him for a little bit on a cheap budget. He's proven he can hang in there. He's won a playoff game for you. So if you're the Niners, you're feeling pretty good. You have questions, like Ben said, pretty big questions, but you'll figure it out. You have Kyle Shanahan, who is a offensive whiz. On the other side of the things, we're going to move over to the AFC Championship before we move on to a little bit later in the show. The Chiefs were able to hoist that trophy and oust the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20, and it is still called Arrowhead, Ben.
Yeah, that was a tough one, Josh. That was another tough one. Bengals doing a little too much talking, I think, and they caught up with them right there. But contrary to what I was saying about this other game, this one was determined by the refs. This was the bigger refs game, obviously. Everyone points to that last drive. The personal foul. It's a tough rule, Josh. I think they're just going to overall change that, but letter of the law, they got to call a flag on that, and he pushed them. And obviously, Mahomes did a little acting at the end, so you got to give him credit for that. A little flop got the ref's attention, and it is on their sideline, so you're going to get that little, nudge from them for the ref, put the pressure on him like that. But the other ones, the pass interference late. I forget the other one. They just started to pile up the Chiefs. It was a bad look for those refs in that game and that one. Ultimately, I do think the Chiefs would have won that one, but there was just a lot of unnecessary help for them, I believe, from the refs. But hey, like Josh mentioned, it's still called Arrowhead. I think even the mayor going after this team was just kind of a little strange. It's just kind of too much bulletin board material, I think. Yeah, even with injured Mahomes, I don't know if they just didn't think he was going to show up, but he showed up. He didn't play his exactly best game, but he got the job done. We've already mentioned the refs. It's some of those calls late in game, but if you're the Bengals, you got to overcome that and you got to just win the game. But they didn't. If you talk all that stuff, you got to be able to back it up and walk the talk. And they did it. So I feel like if the Bengals were to redo that, they would. They would maybe ease into this game a little more. But hey, hats off to the Chiefs again. They're just dominant in the AFC. I believe that was their sixth AFC. It was either fifth or sixth straight AFC championship. Going into this one, injuries do concern me a little. Hopefully, obviously we had the week off, so hopefully they can get rested up and everything. Mahomes can get that ankle ready to go. But just from that standpoint, Josh, the Chiefs a little banged up, so they're gonna have to enjoy this rest, take that really to fruition over here, and try to just get this roster as healthy as they can for this one game. But great game, Bengals Chiefs. I hate to see the rest of these still involved, Josh. I just wish they would have eased up a little on that one. Let the game just sort of be played out a little more.
I couldn't agree anymore. We're gonna get to this point a little bit later with the Celtics, but I think I would have wanted to see the way that the refs handled that Lakers Celtics game play out a little bit more. Hint to the LeBron asking for the foul and it wasn't there. I agree with Nick DeVasa and you. The Cincinnati mayor is a jabroni. You never give bulletin board material to players. You don't give it to guys like Joe Burrow either, or the Tom Bradys, the Patrick Mahomes, the Peyton Mannings. You don't give any of those guys, the Big Bens. Those guys have won. They've got their chips on their shoulder. They don't got to prove anything to anyone. So why add another chip on their shoulder, especially to Patrick Mahomes? I had a bunch of people saying, he's playing up this injury. I don't think he was. Maybe a little bit playing up the injury, but he was clearly hurt. If you just take a screenshot of the picture on that play that happened last week, 2 weeks ago with the Jaguars, he rolled his ankle like pretty bad. It looked like even the knee was screwed up, but that didn't happen. He played through it. Dramatics or not, they won the game. He did what he had to do. And Ben, I thought he played a phenomenal game. He threw for over 300 yards, only had like 13 incompletions. As you mentioned, wasn't as explosive until the end of the game. He picks up that huge first down, plus the tacked on 15 yards, which I agree with you. I know you mentioned, love the point of, the refs kind of getting that tug because he was on that sideline. It just had happened in front of them. I agree with that call. But I think Patrick Mahomes did everything he had to do. This kid is an absolute warrior, absolute gamer. Shout out Tom. Shout out all those guys in that chat. They hate that I'm calling him a warrior. They think he's playing up the injury. If so, whatever, to each their own. This guy is legit. He shut up the Burrow talk, and he is the best quarterback in the league. I'm done with it. I'm done. I've been done with this. I've been saying this now for 2 to 3 years. Last year when Patrick Mahomes had his struggles and everybody was crowning Josh Allen before, he's not the guy yet. It is Patrick Mahomes. I'm sick of the disrespect. Sorry, I just had to throw that one out there. But Ben, another point too, speaking of hobbled, they're playing with no Juju Smith. They're rolling out guys, third and fourth guys who they never get any playing time. I mean, it was literally between Travis Kelce and only Marvez Scantling. And, McCole Hardman was banged up. Like, I give so much credit to them. I know their Bengals secondary isn't the best, but they kind of work it out together. Whoever their secondary coach is, I give props to him because a lot of those guys have been shuffle guys and Eli Apple and dealing with all that. A lot of credit to him because they played pretty well. But even on the defensive side of things, too, the Chiefs did what they had to do. This is a dynasty team in the making, Ben. I hate to really use that word, but it's true. This is the 5th straight AFC championship. This is the 3rd or 4th Super Bowl they're going to get to. If they win their 2nd Super Bowl in 4 or 5 years, that's impressive. That's pretty close to a dynasty. It reminds me of the Warriors a little bit. Where no one's saying it's the Patriots, so Patriots fans, hold your breath. We're not saying the Chiefs are going to be better than the 03, 01, 04 Patriots, so calm down. But I like what they did, Ben. They shut up Joe Burrow. They shut up all that noise. I think Joe Burrow got somebody who doesn't like to let a lot of confidence get to his head a little too much. I credit Patrick Mahomes a lot, and I think one of the biggest things in that game, I know you kind of alluded to the refs, I will give the Bengals the benefit of the doubt. That play, that 3rd down play, or it was either 3rd or 4th down, where the ref he was they were trying to say he was trying to flag for them to stop. They let the whole play get out. They let the punters trot on. They let way too much time say before the play was dead. That was a terrible play. Yet they did it again. They did that twice during the game. Just not okay, Ben, at all. So the Bengals if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm definitely furious. I'm not taking anything away from them. They showed up. They did what they had to do. They had chances to win the game as well. So I'm not fully blaming it on the refs, but I am pretty pissed, Ben. That one play on close to the 50-yard line where the ref was trying to indicate that the clock wasn't right. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Gene Steratore was saying that. I know Tony Romo was talking about it. That's where I'm bullshit if I'm a Bengals fan, because that was a huge play. You're getting the ball. I don't remember if it was they went for it on 4th down or whatever it was going to be, but you were going to get the ball in good field position. That didn't end up happening. And I want to leave you with this before we move kind of on to the Celtics and Bruins, Ben. That Trent McDuffie kid, unbelievable. I was tweeting about him. That kid was all over the field. As a cornerback, you don't see that as much either. I feel like cornerbacks usually travel on one side of the field. This kid was all over the place. And that's a tough ask to go up against Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. I mean, just unbelievable performance from him. I think he was probably, in my opinion, the unsung hero of the game. I feel like they were calling his name every they weren't calling his name every 2 seconds, but he was making a lot of the plays. So he just stuck out to me, Ben. I had to give him, I was getting overly excited for him because I was like, damn, I wish Cowboys had a second corner like that. That kid's unbelievable. So, but tip of the hat to Patrick Mahomes, and we're getting the 2 best teams. Honestly, Ben, in my opinion, we're getting the number 1 Kansas City Chiefs. We're getting the number 1 Philadelphia Eagles. It's a treat if you're a football fan. And sometimes, like you said, the cards aren't always in your favor. I think the Bengals did have some chances to win. Joe Burrow with a couple turnovers. So I love the way Zach Taylor handled it. He handled it with a lot of class. On the field, he was a little pissed off, and I get that. But after the game, he said we had chances to win, and that's just what we shouldn't have done. Gain some respect for that, Ben, because if I was a coach, it'd be really hard for me to say that. But again, tip of the cap to the Bengals, 2 years in a row for the AFC Championship. And I seen a stat. It said, I think it's every single team that had ever been to the AFC Championship. I might have to figure it out, but It was like every team who's ever been to the AFC Championship 2 times in a row and goes to the Super Bowl, one of those times like never goes back to the Super Bowl. So that's an interesting little factor there. I got to figure that out, but I can find it even when we're on air. But a lot to kind of chew through there, Ben, before we move. But yeah, shout out to the Chiefs. They got it done. They got called out and they didn't like it.
Yeah, perfectly said right there. Hey, I would like that news from the Chiefs as a Steelers fan. Let's hopefully keep them out of the spotlight and shining for a little while. I know they got, as we mentioned with the 49ers, Bengals got a couple contracts coming up. We got Jesse Bates, T. Higgins got some money. It's not going to be able to pay everybody. So, I mean, not everybody's going to be able to return to that Cincy team. So maybe that's a little foreshadowing what Josh was alluding to right there with the not reaching the sort of this stage again. But yeah, I mean, Bengals, that was a great move from Zach Taylor. You got to play like that. I love seeing the emotion on the field. You got to do that. Just show everybody what's going on. But then, calm it down for the press conference. And, I made it because for what it was. I mean, they had the chances. They just didn't do it. So hats off to the Chiefs. They did their thing. They fought through the adversity with the whole Burrowhead thing and them getting taken into them for, last year. So shout out to the Chiefs for that. And yeah, good season for the Bengals. Like I said, I mean, I alluded to it. Not everyone's going to be able to come back, but they're going to get the majority of the people back. So I'm not too worried for them. They're just going to have to learn to rebuild some of these other key pieces that they're able to maintain and retain and just go from there. So both teams are in pretty good positions. The Chiefs, hey, way to make it Arrowhead again. So shout out to them. And like Josh said, it's the two best teams. The NFL pull some plugs to get them here, maybe. But we'll let the talk. We'll let that talk happen. But we can't wait for this great football matchup. Great football. Last Sunday, last Super Bowl. For the season, obviously. So it's going to be a great matchup. I can't wait for it. But it got there a little dicey, Josh, I will say.
For sure. And Ben, the stat was it was a little different than what I said. It was close, but each of the last 16 quarterbacks to lose in their Super Bowl debut have never made it back to the big game. I'm just going to name some interesting people here for you guys. The last 16 in order: Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick. You got Donovan McNabb, Matt Hasselbeck, Jake Delhomme, Steve McNair, Drew Bledsoe. Those were just some of the other good names that stuck out. But
some good names.
So some good names, some good crowd. I think Burrow has a shot to get back for sure. I'm not resting my laurels on that, but just a little interesting take there. I had to throw that out. But yeah, Ben, we got to soak it all in. It's Super Bowl Sunday's coming up in 2 weeks. As much as I pains me, I can't even say the right word, to see the Eagles in it. I'm super excited for it. I got a couple squares going, so I'll be rooting for the squares, and of course the Chiefs, because I have them in a playoff pool, so double whammy there. But yeah, Ben, I think as a football fan, we're in for a treat. As much as I am a Cowboys fan, I got to be a realist as well. The Philadelphia Eagles deserve to be there. Take the dagger out the heart, but it's the truth.
Yeah, it's just the two best teams. Obviously, the Steelers don't hate the Eagles as much, but I don't really I want to see us in that position too. But two best teams out there. It's gonna be a great matchup, and like Josh said, get those squares going, get those prop bets going. I want to see those same game parlays. It's pretty much a pick 'em right now, Josh. But I'm leaning towards maybe Eagles spread. I'm just saying that out there right now.
He's teasing. He's throwing the feelers out for you guys.
These are the bets right here, because it's always, you got to throw a couple bets in there. With our teams in there, still got to make the games a little more interesting. Just give it a little more juice. So we'll be discussing that a little more next week as we get a little closer.
Oh, for sure, Ben. Speaking of our teams, we're going to get to Boston for the TD Garden teams, my two Boston teams that I actually actively root for. The Boston Bruins dropped 3 of their last 3 games. Ben, they're on a 3-game skid. Still 11 points ahead in their conference. So looking at that President's Trophy, looking pretty good right now. I like that home ice advantage, is huge for the Bruins. But Ben, are we concerned about this little skid here for the Bruins?
No, Josh, we're chilling. I think no puns right there, just for the rank right there. But I think they're doing all right. They were on pace before sort of this three-game skid to have the most wins and points in NHL history. I believe 65 wins. They were on pace for. I don't remember the points off the top, but that just shows you what kind of season the Bruins are having, what season we're having
Got
over there.
81 points right now.
81 points, perfect, Josh. So yeah, they would have been high up there. I mean, listen, they got a ways to go to get some of these markers right there, but they were on the path. They're on pace, I should say. But no, I don't think this three-game skid hurts them right there. It's just a tough one to lose to Tampa, giving up two in that third period. It's just couldn't finish them off. But I mean, they're a scrappy team right now. Just sort of in the next game, these Florida teams are a little scrappy right now. The Panthers as well. Again, that OT went over us. Teams that haven't really met expectations so far this season, I would kind of handle them pretty well. I think they just got fed up and they're starting to fight for their lives a little more. I know it's not even All-Star break, but I mean, the Panthers haven't really played up to these expectations that we've seen them sort of, compile over these last couple of years. They've sort of been the best with the Tampa up there, and they haven't really been. Tampa's bounced back, but the Panthers haven't really been there. But the Lightning's also experienced some slides this year. But I wouldn't be too worried. This team is fine. I think we were just a little spoiled, Josh. I think we just kept seeing wins after wins. So this is our first real losing streak right now. I think we just gotta not hit the panic button. We just gotta regroup. Because I mean, looking at this team, I really don't see any trade deadline moves that would just improve us. I think the roster is pretty much set right now. We've got hopefully we got that depth over there as well, and then with this Krejci obviously signing, now we've got that second, third center that we play around with and just move some of these lines around with. So I'm not pressing the panic button for the Bruins. We're gonna get some losses in there. We've had a great season so far, a little spoiled, so I like seeing us lose right now, so we get this team back on track. But no, I wouldn't be too concerned with this team unless the injuries start piling up, Josh. Then we got to start worrying about that. But right now, I think we're fine. Just a little skid for us, but I'd rather us, have this skid right now than in the playoffs. So I'm fine with this. And I think we'll be looking to get it going. Yeah. I believe we have the Maple Leafs tomorrow 7:30. Yep. So I mean, it's always good to get Toronto in town. Always good to try to beat up on them. Try to get some of the confidence back for us. It's gonna be a good game, so we have to check that one out. But not pressing the panic button yet, Josh, for the Bruins. I think we're totally fine. Just a little skid right now, but I think we'll get through it.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think the biggest point here is I don't think they need to make any trades too. You touched up on that as well. You look at their defensive pairing back there, Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy. They're just so deep now in adding Taylor Hall and getting Krejci back, a guy who just fits in like a glove, gels with a lot of those players. The locker room loves him. They have hopefully they continue this and I think they will for the regular season, but it all comes down to the postseason, which I know we've seen them fold in years past. I have a lot of confidence in them, Ben. I think at the very least this team is looking at a conference championship, Stanley Cup appearance. You look at the Hurricanes, who we dropped our last game to. Very good team, second best team in the league, with 72 points. So they're still 11 points above the next person, or 9 points above the next person, excuse me. But they're doing what they have to do, Ben. They're continuing to win games. As you just mentioned, too, they played a couple of the pretty tough teams, losing to the Hurricanes, Panthers, and Lightning. I know the Panthers record isn't really appealing, but on the flip side, they've got a couple big games coming up as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs, who've kind of had our number a little bit. We've got the Capitals coming up and the Stars, and on the road against the Stars and Predators. Then we come back to play the Islanders as well. So nice little tough stretch here, looking at the last 3 games into these next 5. I expect the Bruins to handle a bunch of those games. They've got They've got a little break there now. They play the Maple Leafs, as we mentioned, tomorrow at 7:30. But One thing I want to just throw out as well too. Love him when I see it out of Olmark. I think I've talked about this in the past. Championship teams have dual goalies, and that's kind of what the Bruins have. Olmark's even kind of leaning more towards just like a dominant number one. He's been amazing. So potential Vezina winner. But I like what the Bruins have done, Ben, and I'm not panicking at all yet. I think, like you mentioned, this is what championship teams do. They're 38-7.
Yeah.
38-7-5. So I'm not panicking. They were 38-4. Like, that is unbelievable. They're going to have losses. They need losses. They need adversity. Championship teams need that adversity to fight through. They've been doing that. Look for them to go on a nice little stretch again, because that's just how great this team is. And, you know, barring any injuries or any crazy setbacks within some of the players, Ben, catastrophic thing, I think the Bruins are destined for greatness this season. I'm not panicking at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no spot that's shaky for us. You mentioned the goaltending play has been great. Defense has been there. Obviously getting McAvoy back, Lindholm stepping up finally, for that trade acquisition to be really successful for us. Carlos showed his depth, just giving us some of these other deeper kind of guys. So Grizzly, obviously. And then, like I mentioned, the addition of Krejci has really just set up everybody over here. Taylor Hall's been stepping up. Obviously, our guy DeBrusque, and some of these other guys, Nick Foliano, and some of these other deeper guys on the line, they've been able to elevate their game because of this. So, if there were any more real weaknesses that we've seen, I would be a little more worried. But as Josh mentioned, with the record and points, we're pretty far ahead of some of these guys, and we're in pretty good position right now. So I'm chilling. I'm all right with the Bruins right now. Just a little scare. And as Josh mentioned, I mean, the Hurricanes are a really good team. And as I mentioned, Lightning, Panthers. Lightning are really good. Lightning are good. Panthers fighting back right now, but those are two close games that pretty attainable for us. Kind of let it slip away at the end. So I'm not worried about that. If we got dominated by those teams, maybe a little more, but no, I think we're in control of most of these games. Just some unforced errors got us out of it. So I'm all right with this skid. I think we'll steer through it. I think this Bruins team's ready to go. We'll give them a break. They deserve some losses, Josh. Just build this team up, like you mentioned, get some adversity going. Know this feeling, remember it, because they haven't been doing too much of this, obviously, this season. So let's just remember that for the postseason, for when it really matters. So I'm also with the Bruins.
And Ben, they've been unbelievable. We are switching over to our Boston Celtics, who again have been pretty unbelievable. They are 2.5 games up in the East. Obviously, they've got a huge game tomorrow, which I will actually be going to. The Brooklyn Nets coming into town. Maybe Kevin Durant's back. I don't know if they've completely ruled him out, but he could be coming back soon. They're playing the Boston Celtics, who have come a little bit more back down to life, Ben, within recent weeks. They were off to like a historic start, like the Bruins as well. I'm still not panicking about them. I'll just start it off with that. They've got a nice little interesting stretch here. I'd say for the next 3 out of 4 games are pretty tough. They've got the Nets, Suns, Pistons is kind of the easy one, but hey, I think the Pistons are also undefeated against us, and the 76ers all coming up. Those are interesting games. 76ers and Nets right up on that cusp of trying to push for top 3 to 4 seeds. I like what the Celtics are doing, Ben. They've been great. I think opposite, and this is the graphic on the bottom here, and I'm going to let you get to this in a second. It's should the Celtics make a deadline move. I know we talked a little bit about the Bruins not making one. The Celtics need to make one. I know everybody's getting super antsy about a big. I know I talked to Jerry about this in San Antonio this past weekend. Huge green teamer, Jerry. And he was saying Jakob Poeltl. Excuse me, I don't know how I can butcher his name. I've been a huge fan of him. I think he'd be great.
Tough name, Josh.
Jakob Poeltl. Yeah, it is a tough name. I've liked him even since he was on Toronto. I think the asking price will be interesting for Jakob. I don't know how that would work. I'd be willing to give up like a future first round pick, especially with the Celtics. We'll probably be a solid team for a while, so our first round pick isn't going to be anything crazy. If you can keep Jakob Poeltl for a while, why not? The upside is great. I think this is a team where he would shine in. He doesn't need to have too much of a role coming off the bench. A couple other guys, PJ Washington's been named. Kelly Olynyk, bringing him back. And I'm blanking on the last guy. I sent in a Bleacher Report thing today, but I'd love PJ Washington as well. Nice 4. He can play the 4, the 5, stretch the floor a little bit. Offensive player, grab some rebounds. Kind of a traditional big. I'd like to get him back in here. Excuse me. I've used him in 2K a lot, so that's what I mean by get him back in here. But I think the Celtics should make a move, Ben, and 100%. We didn't have too many people interact on our Facebook polls. On our Twitter polls and Instagram polls, but 100% of you said that the Celtics should make a move. You heard my voice. I think we should go out and get a center. Ben, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I believe that other last name you might have been looking for was Mason Plumlee. Josh, tell me if I was right on that one.
That's Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing. Josh really got me with that Jakob Poeltl one. I would love for him. I'm a big fan of him since, like Josh mentioned, he got into Spurs. I would love to get him in Toronto. I would love to get him over here. That'd be just some great big depth behind us. With Al Horford and Rob Williams. Obviously, Rob Williams a little injury concerns, but we really don't have too much behind those guys. We just got Blake Griffin. Luke Cornett, not exactly the most intimidating guys right there. Not the biggest of bigs, especially in where Blake Griffin is right now. But I would love to. I would love any of those guys. Mason Plumlee too, as I mentioned. Chris Boucher from the Raptors, and as Josh mentioned, Kelly Olynyk. Let's welcome him back. You guys money from Miami, so I'd gladly welcome him back. Any of those bigs, really. I think if we can get a nice little, send them a little draft pick. As Josh mentioned, I think we're going to be pretty good for the next couple of years. So our draft picks won't matter as much. We can sort of toss those around for guys that we really need roles for and just depth positions as well. So I'm looking to get a big, I think, guard play and forwards. We're all right. Obviously this Marcus Smart injury, we got to monitor, but he shouldn't. I don't think it's anything season, ending. Obviously, it's obviously not season ending, but anything prolonged into the playoffs. So I think he's good with that. I think we're all set with that. I think we really just need this depth at the big man position, just in case as well, because of Rob's injury concerns. So any of these guys will work well. I really like that Jakob. I almost keep calling him Jakob Poeltl or Mason Plumlee one. I would really like to bring in those guys. I think they would just come off really, solid bench guys for us, just depth. Just give these other guys some rest, give Al some rest. Al's not as young as he once was, so I want to give him the max amount of rest as he can and can't get. Because, he just makes his offense run differently when he's fully healthy and ready to go. He's playing well, so we play a lot better, with him healthier. So I'd like to get some big man depth, Josh. So any of those guys would work well for me.
Couldn't agree anymore. And I think just looking back to the NBA Finals, that's what we needed. I preached about it. We just didn't have depth. And hey, they addressed it. Brad Stevens heard our cries. He's seen the play. He knows we needed some more, going up against a very talented Warriors team, very experienced team. Talk about dynasties, as I mentioned, that was them. He went out and got Malcolm Brogdon. I know you mentioned Blake Griffin hasn't been the best. Went out and tried to get him and successfully got him. I like what the Celtics are doing right now, Ben. I think they're going to pull the trigger. Brad Stevens, I like him even more than Danny Ainge sometimes with some of the moves he makes because he's willing to do it and not, he's not always looking for a fleece. I feel like that was kind of Danny Ainge's thing. He was always looking to fleece a team. If not, he wasn't going to make the trade, and it was this whole thing. But, and he always believed in the guys too much. And I like what Brad Stevens is doing. And same for Joe Mazzulla, just named the All-Star head coach for the Eastern Conference. So excited for that. Very excited for Joe. I know we were kind of poking a little. There was some questions earlier in the season and before we started, and we know the Celtics and Brad Stevens and the ownership have always been he's been a highly touted guy within the organization, but he's been able to fight through adversity as well, Ben. Remember, this Celtics team now, they're still number one. They haven't changed from the number one. They climbed to the leaderboard, stayed at number one pretty much for the most of the season, but they struggled a little bit. They had some question marks. Joe Mazzulla was calling some games. I like that. That's how you test a coach, and we talked about championship for their caliber for the Bruins. Same thing for the Celtics. You need to go through adversity, and they've been able to do that. I think they're not even one piece away. We are championship bound, but I think adding a guy like Jakob Poeltl, even Kelly Olynyk, I'm not crazy about that, to be completely honest. I don't like him as much. I never really was a big fan. I will say he would fit in decent with this team because he's not asked to do too much. I think Jakob Poeltl is light years better though. But and I know we've kind of been, as you mentioned, clamoring for another big. But I like what the Celtics are at right now. Both the TD Garden teams are in great positioning. Right now, let's just look at things. If we were to be in the playoffs right now, we'd probably be matched up with the Atlanta Hawks, who we've had their number. They've been a disaster ever since the last 2 years where they made that deep playoff run. They haven't been quite the same. Ben, I'm loving what I'm seeing out of the Celtics, and I agree with our Twitter, and I agree with you. I think we make a trade, whether it's Jakob Poeltl, Mason Plumlee as well. I couldn't believe he slipped my mind. He was a pretty good center for a while in the league. I know he's not like top three, but again, we have that depth. We have Rob Williams. We have Al Horford, who's also playing amazing. Yes. So just give them a little bit more rest. I know Rob Williams has some injury concerns, and roll out guys like Mason Plumlee and Jakob Poeltl for the right price. And I think this team's already unstoppable, but they'd be undeniable at that point. So shout out to my boy Cody Rhodes, who actually won the Royal Rumble. I felt like that was actually like really weird. I didn't mean to do that. That's just his saying is undeniable. I'm forgetting the other two.
Hell of a transition.
Yeah, it was a hell of a transition. I'm blanking on the other ones. I just bought his new hoodie and I don't even remember. Undesirable, undeniable, undeniable, the American Nightmare. Just quickly, amazing Royal Rumble. I know a lot of people. I was talking with Jared. I was talking with a couple other folks who think, having Cody Rhodes at number 30, even though they announced he was going to come back and win it, so predictable. I think the WWE did the right thing. I'm a Cody stan. I know this is probably all over Ben's head and some of your heads who aren't crazy into WWE, but I'm a Cody stan. I am biased. He's probably my favorite wrestler right now. I loved it. It was a great atmosphere. Our seats were a little rough. Me, James, and Cody couldn't see the Jumbotron for some of the show, but it didn't matter. The atmosphere was great. The scooters were awesome that we were scooting around in San Antonio.
There we go.
I was thinking about it the night of the Royal Rumble and on the flight back, but somebody made an excellent point. We made our Royal Rumble predictions, and James nailed both. He called Rhea Ripley and Cody Rhodes. So just want to give James a little tip of the cap for that one.
I won't give him anything, Josh. Come on. Those are the easy picks, Josh. Josh sent me those picks. I went stone cold. Listen, you got to go off on the
rumors
edge with me. Yeah, I took a risk. You got to take a risk sometimes. Sometimes they don't pay off, but I got the Cody Rhodes situation, Josh, on that one. He was the favorite to win it, so I could see obviously why, that injury. That's a great storyline to have. So I got nothing wrong with Cody Rhodes. I remember back in the day.
Yeah, he's come a long way.
He's come a long way. I won't lie. He's some of those sort of nicknames, sort of sayings that he says now, Josh. I didn't really think he was ever going to get to this level as a wrestler. I thought he was always just going to be one of those behind the scene guys. They left to WWE, and obviously I've been watching, but he came back. He's made a splash. Kudos to him. I think I saw some of those injuries are pretty gruesome, to go out there with. So hats off to him. Listen, I know people could say whatever they want about wrestling, but listen, those guys put their bodies out on the line. So
yes, sir,
you got to give it to them on that. Listen, that's undeniable. So you got to give them to them on that. Hey, listen, I missed the other one, but Liv Morgan's my girl.
Rhea Ripley.
I missed the other one. I had Liv Morgan.
Oh yeah.
She was just, I don't really, like I said, I haven't watched it, but she was pretty
I know what you're
charismatic.
getting at.
She was pretty charismatic. So I went with Liv Morgan. She didn't win, unfortunately, but hey, Liv Morgan always goes out there, puts a good show on. So shout out Liv Morgan. Stone Cold was a tough pick, Josh, but sometimes you gotta take it.
And they, I don't like. Again, I'm a wrestling nerd, so I can go on and on and on. But the end of the show, we got another minute, so it's fine. At the end of the show, I thought somebody they kicked off. So obviously, everybody knows who's a wrestling fan or even just a casual. You usually if you're kicking off the show at the Royal Rumble, it's whoa. Something massive is going to happen at the end of the show. Maybe The Rock comes back. Me, James, Cody, there's wrestling fans around us. We're going insane. Dude, maybe The Rock really is going to come, because if they're kicking off the show at the Rumble and they don't want him to win, they flex him into that storyline. But as a wrestling diehard fan, the Sami Zayn Bloodline storyline has been unbelievable. It has even critics who hate WWE and always talk about how bad the storylines have been. That's probably one of the best storylines I've seen in wrestling since the Attitude Era. It's really that good. But to quickly wrap up here, because we're getting close on time, I thought it was that little glimmer of hope at the end, because it was a gruesome ending to that show. If you didn't watch it, watch it. I thought Stone Cold or maybe The Rock would come out at the end. It didn't end up happening, but I was happy, Ben. It was just, the place was awesome. It was rocking. It was sold out. Shout out to Hardy for the song Sold Out too. I mean, it was jam-packed. The Pitch Black match was very bad, but it was overall a pretty good show. And yeah, just excited for my boy Cody Rhodes. Whether people want to accept it or not, he is undeniable. So I had to be corny with that one again. So next week we will be back. Probably not as much Celtics and Bruins. Will maybe pause for a week or two. It's going to be Super Bowl heavy next week. All Super Bowl. We're going to get into everything. We'll get into some betting. We'll get into all the stuff you guys want to get into. Of course, any major conflicting things. We'll talk about those as well. We want to hear you guys out. I'm going to leave it with this, man. Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble. I'm fired up about it. I'm feeling good, and just waiting for that hoodie to come back in. And for that hoodie to come in, maybe I'll wear it on the show, support the brand. But shout out to everybody who joined. You guys are what keep us afloat on this podcast. So shout out to you guys, and hope everybody has a good week.
Yeah, echo that as always. Just appreciate everyone coming through here. We do it for you guys, so appreciate everyone tuning in. Tune in next week too. We'll get a nice little Super Bowl preview. We'll get all those, like Josh mentioned, we'll get all those betting prompts in there for everybody too. All those guys that love betting and everything. We got to make the game a little juicier, a little more interesting for us. Since we don't really have anybody in it, but maybe stay tuned for that. And come on, WWE, where was Stone Cold?